I am pregnant, but my husband had a vasectomy 3 years ago, and now he is looking at me like I am a stranger in our own home. The silence in the kitchen was thick and suffocating, heavier than any argument we had ever had in our 10 years of marriage. My husband, Mark, sat at the small round table near the window, his hands clasped tightly around a mug of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. He wasn't drinking it. He wasn't moving. He was just staring at the small white plastic stick that lay in the center of the table between us. 2 distinct pink lines were visible on the display window. "Mark," I whispered, my voice trembling so much that I barely recognized it. "Please say something. You have to talk to me." He slowly lifted his eyes to meet mine. Usually, Mark's eyes were warm, a gentle shade of brown that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. But today, they were cold. They were empty. It was as if a wall of ice had formed between us, and I was standing on the outside, shivering. "What is there to say, Vanessa?" he asked. His voice was flat, devoid of emotion, which was far worse than if he had screamed. "The test is positive. You are pregnant." "Yes," I said, tears welling up in my eyes and blurring my vision. "I am, but I swear to you, Mark, I don't understand how this happened. You have to believe me." He let out a short, cynical laugh and looked away, staring out into the rainy garden. "How it happened, Vanessa? We are adults. We know how this happens. The problem is that it shouldn't be possible with me. I had the surgery. I went to the follow-up appointments. I was cleared. I am sterile." He turned back to me, and for the first time, I saw the heartbreak beneath his anger. "So if I am sterile, and you are pregnant, what is the logical conclusion? What am I supposed to think?" I felt like the floor was disappearing beneath my feet. I reached out to touch his arm, but he pulled away as if my touch burned him. That small rejection broke my heart more than his words. "I have never been with anyone else," I said, my voice rising with desperation. "Mark, look at me. I have loved you since we were 22 years old. I have never looked at another man. I don't care what the science says, and I don't care what that surgery was supposed to do. I am telling you the truth." He stood up abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the wooden floor. "I can't do this right now," he muttered. "I need fresh air. I need to think." "Mark, don't leave," I begged, taking a step toward him. "Please, let's call the doctor. Let's figure this out together." He didn't answer. He walked past me, grabbed his car keys from the counter, and walked out the front door. A moment later, I heard the engine start, and then the sound of his car fading into the distance. I was alone. I stood in the middle of our kitchen, clutching my stomach, feeling a mixture of terror and confusion that I had never experienced before. I looked down at the pregnancy test again. It felt like a curse. How could a miracle turn into a nightmare so quickly? To understand why this moment was destroying my life, I have to take you back a few years. Mark and I have a wonderful life. We have 2 beautiful children, a boy named Leo, who is 7, and the girl named Sophie, who is 5. We were happy, but we were also tired. Raising 2 energetic children while balancing our careers had been exhausting. 3 years ago, after Sophie turned 2, we had a serious conversation about our future. We decided that our family was complete. We were satisfied with 2 children, and we wanted to focus on raising them well and saving money for their education. We didn't want any accidental surprises. Mark, being the supportive and loving husband he is, offered to get a vasectomy. He told me, "Vanessa, you went through 2 pregnancies and 2 painful deliveries. It is my turn to take responsibility for our birth control." I remember waiting for him in the hospital waiting room that day. I was nervous, but he was making jokes, trying to make me laugh. The surgery went perfectly. He recovered quickly, and a few months later he went back to the doctor to test his sample. The doctor confirmed it. 0 sperm count. The procedure was a success. We were safe. We were free from the worry of unintended pregnancy. Or so we thought. Over the last few weeks, I had started feeling strange. At first, I thought it was just the flu, or perhaps stress from my job as a graphic designer. I was working on a big project and I was staying up late. I felt nauseous in the mornings, and I was incredibly tired. I would sit down on the sofa at 6 p.m. and fall asleep within minutes. Then there were the smells. Suddenly, the smell of coffee, which I usually loved, made my stomach turn. The smell of Mark's cologne, which I had bought for him, became unbearable. One afternoon, I was at lunch with my best friend, Sarah. I ordered my favorite chicken salad, but when it arrived, I couldn't eat it. Sarah looked at me, her eyebrows raised. "Vanessa, are you okay? You look pale." "I'm just tired," I said, pushing the lettuce around the plate with my fork. "I think I might have a stomach bug." "When was your last period?" Sarah, who has 3 children of her own, gave me a long, suspicious look. I froze. I tried to remember. My cycle had always been regular, like clockwork, but with the stress of work and the busyness of the kids' school activities, I hadn't been paying attention. I quickly checked the calendar on my phone. My heart skipped a beat. I was 6 weeks late. "No," I said, shaking my head and laughing nervously. "That's impossible, Sarah. Mark had a vasectomy. It's medically impossible." "Nothing is impossible," Sarah said softly. "Vasectomies can fail. It's rare, but it happens. You should take a test, just to be sure, just to rule it out." I dismissed her advice at the time, but the thought planted itself in my mind like a seed. On my way home that evening, I stopped at the pharmacy. I felt ridiculous. I felt like I was wasting money. I bought the test, hid it in my purse, and drove home. Mark was in the living room playing video games with Leo. When I got home, the domestic scene was so normal, so peaceful. I went upstairs to the bathroom, locked the door, and took the test. I didn't even wait the full 3 minutes. The lines appeared almost instantly. I sat on the edge of the bathtub, staring at the stick, my hands shaking uncontrollably. My mind was racing. How? How could this happen? And more importantly, how was I going to explain this to Mark? I knew Mark. He was a logical man. He was an engineer. To him, facts were everything. If a machine is turned off, it doesn't run. If a pipe is sealed, water doesn't flow. If a man is sterilized, he doesn't father children. I knew that in his mind, there would only be one explanation. I had betrayed him. That brings us back to the kitchen and Mark driving away in the rain. I spent that entire Saturday alone. I sent the kids to my mother's house for the weekend, telling her that Mark and I needed some time to clean the house and catch up on work. I couldn't let them see us like this. I couldn't let them feel the tension radiating off the walls. I paced around the house. I cleaned things that were already clean. I scrubbed the kitchen counters until my hands were red and sore. Every time a car drove past the house, I ran to the window, hoping it was Mark. But hour after hour passed, and he didn't return. My mind started to play tricks on me. I began to doubt my own sanity. Did I sleep with someone else and forget? No, that was insane. I have never even flirted with another man. I am completely devoted to my husband. Is this an immaculate conception? I laughed hysterically at the thought. I was going crazy. Finally, around 11 p.m., I heard the front door unlock. I was sitting on the sofa in the dark, wrapped in a blanket. Mark walked in. He looked exhausted. His clothes were damp, and his eyes were red-rimmed, as if he had been crying or rubbing them furiously. He didn't look at me. He walked straight to the hallway closet and pulled out a pillow and a thick blanket. "Mark," I called out softly from the darkness. He stopped, his back to me. "I'm sleeping in the guest room," he said. "Please talk to me," I pleaded. "Where did you go?" "I went to a bar," he admitted. "I sat there for hours. I didn't drink much, I just thought. I replayed the last 10 years in my head. I tried to find the moment when we drifted apart. I tried to find the moment when you met someone else." "There is no one else!" I shouted, standing up. The anger was rising in me now. I was hurt that he had so little faith in my character. How can you think that of me after everything we have built? Do you really think I am that kind of person? He turned around slowly. "Then explain it, Vanessa. Explain the biology, because right now I have 2 options. Option A. The laws of medicine and biology have suspended themselves specifically for us. Or, Option B. My wife, who I trusted with my life, made a mistake and is lying to cover it up. Which one sounds more likely to you?" "I don't know," I cried. "I know it sounds impossible, but I am telling you the truth." "We need to go to the doctor. We need to see Dr. Henderson." "I already made an appointment," he said coldly. "Monday morning, 9 a.m. I want a paternity test, and I want him to examine me." "Good," I said, wiping my tears. "That is exactly what I want too." He turned and walked into the guest room, shutting the door firmly behind him. I heard the lock click. That sound was like a gunshot to my heart. I went upstairs to our big empty bed and cried until I fell into a restless sleep. Sunday was a nightmare. We moved around the house like ghosts. We avoided each other. If I went into the kitchen, he went to the garage. If he came into the living room, I went to the garden. The air was so thick with unspoken accusations that it was hard to breathe. I spent the day researching on the internet. I typed into the search bar, "Can a vasectomy fail after 3 years?" The results gave me a glimmer of hope. I read articles about a process called recanalization. Apparently, the body is amazing at healing itself. Sometimes the 2 ends of the tubes that were cut can grow back together and form a new channel. It is rare. It happens in maybe 1 in 2,000 cases, but it is possible. It is called spontaneous recanalization. I wanted to run to the garage and show Mark the article on my phone. I wanted to scream, "Look, it happens! I'm not a liar!" But I stopped myself. I knew Mark. He wouldn't believe a random article on the internet. He needed to hear it from a medical professional. He needed science, not a Google search. So I waited. I held on to that small piece of hope like a lifeline. Monday morning arrived. The sky was gray and overcast, matching our mood. We drove to the clinic in separate cars. I think Mark couldn't bear to be in the same confined space as me. We met in the waiting room. The clinic was bright and smelled of antiseptic and lemon cleaner. There were other couples there, young couples holding hands, looking excited about their ultrasounds. We sat on opposite sides of the room, looking at the floor. When the nurse called our names, Vanessa and Mark, we both stood up. Dr. Henderson was an older man with gray hair and a very calm, reassuring demeanor. He had performed Mark's surgery 3 years ago. He looked at our files and then looked at us. He sensed the tension immediately. "Well," Dr. Henderson said, closing the file, "you mentioned on the phone that Vanessa has tested positive for pregnancy, and you are concerned." "Concerned isn't the word," Mark said tightly. "You told me I was sterile. You told me the count was 0. "And it was," Dr. Henderson said. "I have the records right here." "But Mark, Vanessa, biology is not mathematics. It is not always 100% predictable. Mark crossed his arms. Are you telling me this is my child? I am saying it is a possibility, the doctor replied. Before we jump to conclusions about infidelity, we need to examine you. I want to check if the vasectomy has failed. It is called recanalization. The tubes can sometimes grow back together and reconnect. Mark looked skeptical. After 3 years? It is rare this late, but yes, it happens. The doctor asked Mark to go into the examination room for a sample and a physical check. I was left alone in the consultation office. I sat there staring at the anatomical posters on the wall, praying. I prayed for a medical failure. I had never prayed for a surgery to fail before, but right now, a failed surgery was the only thing that could save my marriage. 20 minutes later, Mark and the doctor returned. Mark looked pale. He looked shaken. Dr. Henderson sat down behind his desk and sighed. He looked at Mark, and then he looked at me. Well, the doctor began. Mark, I checked your sample under the microscope immediately. It seems that nature has found a way. My head snapped up. What? You have a sperm count, Dr. Henderson said. It is not high, but it is definitely there, enough to cause a pregnancy. It appears that one of the vas deferens tubes has managed to bridge the gap. You have recanalized. I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 3 days. A massive wave of relief washed over me so strong that I felt dizzy. I slumped back in the chair and covered my face with my hands, sobbing. I told you, I choked out. I told you, Mark. Mark stood there frozen. The anger that had fueled him for the last few days drained out of his body instantly, leaving him looking vulnerable and ashamed. He looked at the doctor. Then he looked at me. His face crumpled. It's mine, he whispered. Unless Vanessa has been with someone else and your vasectomy failed simultaneously, which would be a statistical absurdity. Yes, this is your child, Dr. Henderson said, with a small, sympathetic smile. Congratulations, I suppose. Mark dropped to his knees beside my chair. He didn't care that the doctor was watching. He grabbed my hands and buried his face in them. Vanessa, he sobbed. Oh my God, Vanessa, I am so sorry. I looked down at him. Part of me was still angry. Part of me was hurt that he had doubted me so quickly. But as I looked at his shaking shoulders, I remembered how terrified he had been. He had thought he lost his wife to betrayal. He had thought his life was a lie. I pulled my hands free and placed them on his face, lifting his head so he had to look at me. You are an idiot, I said, tears streaming down my cheeks. You are a logical, stubborn idiot. I know, he cried. I was just so scared. I felt so inadequate. I thought, I don't know what I thought. Can you ever forgive me? I looked into his eyes, those warm, brown eyes that were finally back. I can forgive you, I said softly. But you are going to be changing a lot of diapers to make up for this. He laughed through his tears, a sound of pure relief. I will change every diaper. I will do the night feeds. I will do everything. Dr. Henderson cleared his throat politely. I can give you 2 a moment, or we can discuss the next steps. Since you are pregnant, we need to schedule an ultrasound. We walked out of that clinic differently than we had walked in. We were holding hands. Mark was holding my hand so tightly, as if he was afraid I would float away if he let go. The drive home was quiet, but it was a peaceful quiet. It was the silence of 2 people who had looked over the edge of a cliff and stepped back just in time. When we got home, we sat in the garden. The rain had stopped, and the sun was trying to break through the clouds. I really am sorry, Mark said again, looking at the grass. I shouldn't have jumped to that conclusion. I should have trusted you first and the science second. It's okay, I said, resting my hand on my stomach. It was still flat, but I knew that life was growing there. A surprise life, a miracle baby that defied medical science to be here. It was a shock for both of us. How do you feel about this? About having another one? He asked gently. I thought about it. We had planned to stop it, too. We had plans for travel, for our careers. A baby would change everything. It would mean sleepless nights again. It would mean postponing our plans. But then I thought about the fight we had just survived. I thought about how much we loved Leo and Sophie. I think, I said, smiling slowly, that this baby really wanted to be here. If he or she fought that hard to exist, then who were we to argue? Mark smiled back, and he leaned over to kiss me. It was a kiss full of apology, promise, and love. I love you, Vanessa. I love you too, Mark. The next few months were not easy. I had forgotten how hard pregnancy could be. The morning sickness was terrible, and my back ached constantly. But Mark was true to his word. He treated me like a queen. He cooked dinner every night. He gave me foot massages. He was patient when I was moody. We told the kids a few weeks later. Leo was confused, asking, I thought you said the shop was closed, which made us laugh hysterically. Sophie was just excited to have a real live doll to play with when our baby boy Ethan was born 7 months later. He had Mark's eyes and my nose. He was perfect. Sometimes late at night when I am feeding Ethan and the house is quiet, I think back to those 3 terrible days in the kitchen. I think about how fragile trust can be, but I also think about how resilient love is. Mark and I learned a valuable lesson. We learned that trust isn't just about believing someone when it's easy. Trust is believing someone when the evidence suggests you shouldn't. It is about faith. And we also learned that you can plan your life down to the smallest detail. You can make spreadsheets. You can save money. You can even have surgery to prevent changes. But life has its own plans. Sometimes the best things in life are the ones you never planned for. The mistakes, the accidents, the surprises. As I look down at Ethan sleeping in my arms, I know one thing for sure. He was the best surprise we ever had. And although Mark has gone back to the doctor to make sure the surgery is really fixed this time, we definitely do not want a 4th. We are grateful for the failure, because sometimes when things go wrong, they actually turn out exactly right. I hope this story helps you understand that even in the darkest moments of misunderstanding, communication and patience can save a relationship. Thank you for listening to my story.